Hey everyone, welcome to episode 10 of the Cyrus podcast. I just want to say right off the bat that I'm so grateful to all you listeners. The support has been really overwhelming. If you haven't subscribed yet, then do so in your favourite podcast player. This way you'll get the regular updates and we have some great episodes lined up. In episode 10, this one, we talk to Cyrus Todiwala, OBE. We discuss his upbringing in Bombay, his journey into becoming a chef, where it was frowned upon at the time in India. We talk about how his career as a chef brings him to the UK and how he had to take a massive interest in training. We discuss cooking oils, which are good, which are bad for you. We discuss meats that have fallen out of flavour and favour and how he feels about negative reviews on the likes of TripAdvisor and other websites. Cyrus is a really fascinating chap. He had a bucket full of knowledge and it was an absolute delight talking to him. I hope you all enjoyed this podcast. Cyrus, we're going to start now.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
And thank you for your time today. I know how busy you are, and but really, I just want to say thank you because you didn't have to do this, and but I think we'll have a good conversation nonetheless. And
we shall have a good conversation.
We both like to talk.
Yep.
So
even though I know my mind is racing on the amount of work I've got to do today, but still, I carry on.
So I was doing a bit of research, and I'm just going to give everyone a little bit of forward information so they know. You've got an OBE for your contribution to the hospitality industry.
Yes.
An MBE for services to education. You've cooked for royalty, presidents, international celebrities, honorary professor, and an honorary doctorate. And you're an environmentalist at heart. And
yes.
And the honorary professorship really impressed me, actually, really, because even just talking to you before this, you like to talk, you understand things and you like to research things, and maybe I'm a little bit like that myself, and everyone who listens to this knows I like to talk anyway. So so tell us what it was like being brought up in Mumbai, and obviously give us a little bit about your journey pre-UK.
Being born and brought up in Mumbai or Bombay, as we still call it, was fantastic. I mean, when someone like me grew up, life was a bit different. Bombay was still pretty laid back, wasn't so hard-pressed. The population hadn't exploded yet. And I had a great childhood, though I was highly asthmatic. So I was sick very, very often. And being sick very, very often, I was at home. And Mum would still get fed up with me because once the panting and the wheezing and the coughing subsided, I was up to mischief. So the best way was to involve me in the kitchen. Yeah. So at a very, very young age, I would make chapatis with her. I would, do bits and pieces of cooking, etc. with her.
Yeah.
And that's where I think some of that passion grew, though there was no intention because nobody understood that career anyway. Mm-hmm. But I also spent a bit of my childhood growing up in my uncle's home in Rajasthan, or Madhya Pradesh, on the border, and because of asthma. And someone suggested if I go to a drier climate, things might get better for me. They were better slightly, but there was not much education out there, so I was brought back to Bombay, and the problems became intensified again. Then I went to a boarding school just south of Bombay. North of Bombay, in a place called Devlali in Nasik. And Devlali was a retreat for the British. They used to call it Deolali.
Okay.
So that's where the term Deolali came from.
Yeah.
So when they had mental asylums there and chest hospitals and etc., for tuberculosis and all that.
So what the British were called Doolally?
Doolally.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Is where I was, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was Devlali and they call it Doolally. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so that's the town we were in, and I had a fabulous education. And then I went back, of course, to Bombay, and I took up hospitality. So I went to college, and then joined the Taj Mahal Hotel in Bombay.
So what was it like joining the hospitality industry in India at the time? Was it an industry that was it regarded highly?
No.
No.
Not at all. And a middle-class boy from a respectable family wants to become a cook was unheard of,
Really?
particularly in my community as well. So it wasn't something that you did. You may work in a hotel, but being a cook, not so nice. And actually, when we really joined the industry, there were no role models to look up to. There wasn't a career path I could look at and think. Ambition wasn't existent, at the time. I had no real ambitions. I didn't know where I was going. For a few years, it stayed that way. Also because in India, when people are in a job, they stick to that job. They don't get up and run away somewhere else. And everybody in the kitchen where we joined had 25 years of service, 20 years of service, 30 years of service, 35 years of service. And so you never saw yourself ascending upwards simply because there was somebody up there blocking your path. And but I was lucky, I was fortunate, I shone through all that. I was picked up by the management to move on to do different things. And I got my opportunity gradually until I was transferred to or deputed to Goa, where a new resort was built by the group. And from there on, I think I evolved more. I evolved better. Because for the very first time, I became a chef manager. So being a chef was one thing. I used to run my own kitchen at the Taj in Bombay, which was a very exclusive club kitchen, very exclusive. But when I moved to Goa, all of a sudden, manpower became my problem too. Whereas in Bombay, it was never my problem. Manpower became my headache too. And dealing with sentimentality of the local people and everything else put together. So that is where you evolve as a being from somebody who's got a skill, who can do a job, to somebody who needs the skill to transfer that skill onto others, as well as to command respect and to get a job done. And sitting in a prestigious location where everybody is looking up to the fact that you got to be the best. So that's where the evolution took place. And I stayed in Goa for 8 years. And then the management wanted me to move somewhere else. My wife blankly refused. Said, I'm not coming to Calcutta. If you want to go on your own. So I decided to leave the company. And I left the hotel, joined a friend. We started a restaurant in a city called Pune. He had a restaurant there. The building was torn down and a new property was built. And he was given us, if you join me, it'll be great. The restaurant became instantly hugely successful. But the partnership was faltering. It wasn't an ideal partnership. So we left, we migrated to Australia because I had an open invitation to come to Australia by the then Prime Minister. And so from there on, my friend who used to be here in London asked me, would you not rather come to London? Join me. We have a small restaurant that someone wants us to take over. And that is how I landed up here.
So how long were you in Australia for?
Well, as soon as I came to know about London, Australia was a holiday.
Oh, so it was a holiday.
It became a holiday. Because there was no intention of actually staying there except to endorse my passport. With a visa there. So if this thing failed, I had the opportunity to go back for the next 5 years.
And so it was 1991 roughly when you came to the UK? And what was that like?
So what one growing up in India envisages Britain to be is we grew up with a lot of still British influence. I went through, all my schools had a lot of British influence. The school I started with was, of course, a Jesuit school. The school I finished with was a Church of England school. And so we had the best of that kind of education. And everything that is British has to be the best. That's how you think. Or you get evolved in that thinking. And so when I got this chance, I said, great. London, no problem. I love London. I had done work here at the Hilton on Park Lane for a few months. I had helped in the original setting up of the Bombay Brasserie. And when this opportunity came, I thought, great, England. Number one, everybody will speak English. So I don't have a problem with English. So all the staff, I don't have to train them, teach them, nothing. Two, I said everybody will be highly trained because it's Britain. They have a great training culture. And that was, when I first came, the restaurant was a disaster of health and hygiene, complete disaster that we took over. There were maggots in the backyard.
Oh dear.
So I went through a whole series of thorough cleaning down, getting the chefs had tamed cats in the kitchen to catch mice. And the mice, when the cats were so heavily fed, they would go for the bloody mice anyway. But the kitchen, you can't keep animals in the kitchen. And that was what I saw. I said, wow, this is England. If that happened in India, I would be arrested. I said, this is UK. And so we had to weed out all those things. But then the staff that we inherited, they didn't speak English. And I said, how can this be possible? They live in England, they don't speak English. But they got on with life. And they didn't need to learn English.
No.
Because everybody lived in this, what I eventually came to understand, ghettos. Yeah. So you live within that community. You thrive within it, you work within it, you don't need to speak another language, which actually you must do. Training was horrible. So that's when I started embarking on our own training. We started finding people who could teach English to the staff. And my wife, of course, is a trained chef and manager. So we started doing training. Vilas, who actually helped to bring me here, he would conduct more training. He said, we'll get through this. And when I got more and more involved in it, people around came to know that these guys are doing something more with training. And somebody approached me from the London East Tech, the Training and Enterprise Council, and said, we can help you. I said, really? I said, no. I said, I've got no money. He said, no, you don't have to pay. We've got the funds to help you. And that's where I first came across funding. But few things happened, moved along the way. I got involved in various other activities, and that's when the education sector I got totally involved into it for hospitality training. We had several issues in that business, and eventually we took it over to run it. That jeopardized my legal situation in Britain, of course. But then I met a great restaurateur called Michael Gottlieb. And Michael was looking to conduct a new dream of a chain of Indian restaurants with a cuisine that came in the middle rung of the ladder. Someone told him the guy you want to meet is already working in Britain. So he sought us out. He came there to the restaurant. We had a few meetings, and then he said, this is my dream. I want to do this. I said, fair enough. It was suiting us at the time as well. And so Cafe Spice Namaste was born in 1995. And that's when we landed up in this place. And from there, the other saga began, of course, because we had new systems, we had to have more training, we had to have more people. And so training became quite an integral part of our operations. So to go back a bit on that, Cafe Spice Namaste was the first independent restaurant to win a national training award. It became the first independent restaurant to have an Investors in People standard.
Wow.
It became the first independent restaurant to have an Investors in People gold champion standard.
Pretty impressive.
So that's what we were giving people at the time. And then the rest, of course, is history, because you got involved in a million activities. Being an environmentalist, I am the first civilian in Goa to be made an honorary wildlife warden.
Wow.
So I got involved in activities there to conserve wildlife and to protect the environment. And here opportunities were given, so I got involved in different activities, particularly with the rare breeds of Britain. So I'm quite actively involved with...
Having looked at your menu, there is rare breeds and there is game, and that's not, as far as I've ever seen, that's not a regular thing at Indian restaurants.
No, they don't do.
And do your customers appreciate that as well?
Yes, because I come from a land where there's so much game. We eat everything in India. And I grew up in Rajasthan around game. So venison and partridge and pheasants and grouse, and these were common to me. So it was not something which was novel to me. And so I automatically took to that, and that comes on our menu all the time. So game is featured heavily.
And why isn't mutton more on the menu?
Actually speaking, because I sit on the Mutton Renaissance Committee, the advisory council for that. It's simply because if you go back into history, you go back to the Second World War, and to feed the army, the soldiers, the navy, the air force, the whatever, every piece of meat available on the island was packed, chopped, made into spam, whatever else, shipped to feed the armies. What was left on the land were old ewes and old sheep, which are ideally mutton. So mutton's no male, mutton's mostly the female, the ewe. New Zealand at the time always had abundant amounts of lamb.
That's right.
So New Zealand brainwashed the British public into thinking, why would you want to buy old, haggard meat when we can supply you fresh, good, quality lamb at a better price? And so New Zealand's first vessels of meat came in, and gradually the British love for mutton depleted. So much so that mutton became quite derogatory. And mutton became a thing that is rubbish, you can't cook mutton.
Because people classed it as old.
As old and bad meat or something that the farmer just wants to get rid of. But I'm glad that the Prince of Wales, the Prince Charles thought about it. He put some effort into it. He came to chefs. And mutton is now precious again.
Yeah.
It's precious again. A lot of the Asian restaurants would be buying imported meat anyway. And I bet you they would be using mutton without knowing that there is mutton that they're using. It won't be sold under the guise of lamb.
Yeah.
Because we have terminology for lamb and hogget and feathered and mutton, etc. But the whole world doesn't do that.
Yeah, I must say that I do like mutton. I saw it the other week at a supermarket and I bought it. And I made a curry out of it. It was really nice. And it's just a shame that people just don't use it enough, really.
True. I think the demand has to be there because what it does, for me personally, I don't like using lamb as much because I think the animal hasn't had a chance to live. It hasn't had a chance to thrive.
Yeah.
We have taken its life away too soon. And a mutton, a hogget, a feathered sheep, they have lived for 2 years, 2.5 years, more longer. Hogget just over a year. But they've had a life. And they have had enough opportunity to graze to develop the flavor in their meat.
Yeah.
Whereas a lamb hasn't yet developed all the flavor. The meat is beautiful, it's tender, it's succulent, it's juicy, it's all of that. But the intensity of flavor does not exist in that meat. And this is what an older animal gives you.
Yeah.
But besides, the older animal is given a better chance to conduct a good lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's what is taken away from it.
That's a really interesting point. More people should probably think about that, really. Moving on slightly, you opened Asado, and that obviously, well, not obvious to everybody, but it closed in 2017. What were the challenges with that business?
Asado had many challenges. We had an initial challenge with the team. So with the team, not 100% team, the theme of Asado was already under threat. And I was making far too many adjustments to compensate for the lack of skill in the team.
Yeah.
The two is that you are working within a hotel's environment, as opposed to Mr. Todiwala's kitchen, which has almost a standalone operation. Asado was used for breakfast in the morning by the hotel. It was too directly linked with a badging that the hotel had, and it could not be given the status it deserved. The third aspect is that we had far too many residents in the hotel who naturally only wanted burgers and chips and steaks and salads and roast chickens and stuff like that. So the cuisine that we had designed for Asado was not working. It was working for many people, but not working for everyone. And there were lots of people disappointed, of course, that we closed it down. But it had to be done because it did not close down. It just shifted over into a new scheme. So now it does pizzas, which the residents wanted. It does steaks, it does grills, it's got burgers, chips, salads. That's what was wanted.
Bit more American-y casual.
Yes, that's what it's become. That's what they wanted.
So what I was pretty impressed about, and I'd like to know a little bit of the origination, was Zest Quest Asia.
Yeah.
So tell the listeners about Zest Quest Asia. Tell us the origination for it.
So Zest Quest Asia is now in its 7th year. Yeah. It was 6 years old this year when we had the finals. It's 7 years. It'll be in its 7th year next year in 2020. So I go back before Zest Quest Asia and go back to my days of being involved in local education and training in particular for hospitality.
Yeah.
But I also played a very active role in trying to make the government understand about our industry and what it needed. And also on the work permits, aspect of it. And we used to sit on the Migration Advisory Council meetings
Yeah.
to see if they understood what the industry wanted. Of course, it was a waste of time. Government still doesn't understand. But we managed to pursue Government Office for London and impose upon them to give us a cash sum to open a school. So we did open a school in 2000 called the Asian and Oriental School of Catering. And our idea was to take up school kids who were a nuisance, for example, put them through a channelized approach to skills and put them into jobs. So we did manage to pick up all the kids that schools didn't want, others didn't want. Came on a program. 960 kids were put into full-time jobs.
Wow.
In over 5 years. But the government still did not understand what hospitality wanted, and they disclosed our funding. So we had to give the school up. And we lost a lot of personal money in that. And I was very disappointed, but I didn't want to give up my quest to still enforce education and training in Asian cuisines. It's very important to us. And so one fine day just hit the idea that, why am I trying to break my head in trying to convince Joe Blogg on the road to become a chef? Why don't I look at those already motivated to become chefs and make them think differently? So I sit on the committee of the Master Chefs of Great Britain. I floated the idea at one of our board meetings. I said, we should do something about Asian cuisine. Because youngsters in this country do not understand that they have a huge career prospect within Asian cuisine. It's growing better, stronger, more variety. And so we launched what was then I thought should have is a Junior Asian Chefs Challenge. I wanted to be different because didn't want it to be independent. I wanted to be a team affair. Because in our industry, it's all about the team. It's about the family you develop at work, and then you go back to your family at home. And so Zest Quest Asia was the ideal choice for the words. It evolved, it's become pretty successful now. And the whole idea, and just this morning, one of the students of the current winning team wrote me a very nice email. I replied back. I said, the aim of Zest Quest Asia is purely to open your mind. It's to open your mind to the world outside of where your college has asked you to be. And to look at the world around and say, yes, I don't have to just do that. I can do this or that or that or that or that. I said, you got 89 countries of cuisine to choose from, all growing in this country. There are bad examples, but there are prime examples. There are beautiful examples. There are fabulous restaurants opening up that are gunning for the star and all sorts of things. So that was the whole aim. The aim is still the same, to create a spark, to kindle a spark in the minds of young, budding, college-going chef trainees to look at Asian food as a first-choice career.
So what do you think? Well, we know, you mentioned earlier when we were chatting that the government tightened up the immigration law regarding sort of, let's say, Indian chefs. Well, I'm sure it was wider than that, but that they were the repercussions. What do you think the government could do to be more liberal in that respect even?
Well, the government can do lots.
Yeah.
Okay. Government is a little bit stuck up in a warp. And that warp is a time warp. What the government has failed to realize, this industry of ours is one of the largest contributors to the exchequer. It's the third largest sector in UK today, contributing billions of pounds into the economy. And it's always ignored because every time I look at it, the government looks upon it as a support industry, not as an industry. So many of the ministers might have worked in a restaurant, doing waiting.
Yep.
So they always perceive that as that. And what they also do is they've never helped to raise the profile of the industry. Government needs to start by raising the profile, giving a lot of dignity in that job, in that labor, in that task. And the moment that starts to happen, the face of the industry will change. Because we are not getting a throughput of young people. They are under a different mindset. They think that everybody in our industry is a super celebrity. They'll become super celebrities overnight. And it's easy, but it's not. And that message hasn't gone through, that there's a lot of available skills. There's a lot of availability of developing your culture, your personality, your persona, your profile, everything else. And it's failed the country in that respect. On the other hand of that, every imported chef coming in is treated more by contempt than by grace. Contempt meaning that they look at every individual who's going to come in to bring 5 more people with him once he settles down. But every Indian today is not interested. Asian, maybe lots of different feelings here and there.
Yeah.
But the thing is that you have not allowed people to grow and to, flourish.
Yeah.
The question is, there is still a huge paucity of manpower.
Yeah.
It's now leading to pinching staff from other people. It's leading to staff just walking out one day and other issues as well. The government tightened the work permit regulations to such a degree that it's impossible for a small establishment to go for a work permit.
Yeah.
Because the cost incurred is very, very high. So, from my perspective, yes, a lot more needs to be done. But what has government ever done to invest in education and training within the Asian sector?
No, nothing really.
Okay? So they don't understand the sector. After months of discussion, they still couldn't understand the sector. The only question that came back, why haven't you invested in training? Because everybody has been so busy trying to juggle the balls and keep the business going that they haven't really thought about training and development for a wider group of people. And this is what we are trying to achieve.
So one thing that I noticed, and it's been said a few times, that the hospitality industry is one of the biggest industries in the UK.
Yeah.
And yet there isn't a minister or representative.
Well, I say it all the time. Do we have a minister for tourism even? We don't. It just goes to prove that one of Britain's greatest assets is its history. It's its attraction to tourism globally. London being one of the biggest centers of tourist draw. But we do not even have a minister to speak on behalf of tourism and travel and hospitality. And this is where I think we go wrong, because we don't think it's good enough. We don't think it's a big enough industry. Everybody looks at car manufacturers here and there. 10 hotels, 10 large hotels will employ all the employees that Honda ever wanted to employ. Simple. They're opening all the time, but they can't find manpower.
And it's a really weird issue, because being a chef has never been so popular. The last 20 years is on TV all the time. You've got, a lot of celebrity chefs, yet there's a shortage of chefs.
Yes, it's a dilemma, actually. And it's because, I think also in education, when a young person, budding chef, goes into the college and wants to become something, what the industry has as a standard and what the industry works at and what the industry actually means is never put to them. It has never been described to them as a career which you got to first lay the foundations, a strong foundation. Thereafter, you build on that. So that has never been shown to kids. And so we have a shortage, because I think 70% leave the job and go away. They don't come back to the industry because suddenly the impression that they had at home or at college is not the impression they find at work.
Yeah.
And it's a clash. They're suddenly saying, I can't be out on a Friday night with my mates or Saturday night. No, you can't be. You need to work to make other people happy.
That's the hospitality sector all over, isn't it?
So it's all over. You are working to make other people happy. And that's what our whole aim is in life. That's what we do.
The problem is only going to get worse, though, isn't it? With more and more restaurants opening, because they're opening, especially a lot of casual dining restaurants, they're opening at a severe rate. So, some would say it's a good thing, others would say it's not. But the chef shortage is going to get even worse, isn't it?
It is getting. It's already at a very, very bad level.
Yeah.
And it is going to only get worse. It's not getting better.
Yeah.
And it's not getting better for various reasons. Of course, one of them is a very stringent policy for importing labor outside the EU. Number two is that the industry is again perceived as a bad industry.
There's still a stigma attached to it. Yeah.
Bad industry, bad pay, bad salaries, bad this, bad that. And I think people haven't really understood what this industry is all about. So that's another dilemma we've got.
So that's a long-term plan then, really, to change that.
But we can start changing.
Yeah.
We can start changing. It's never too late. Government has to put effort into it. That's all they have to do. Put some muscle into it.
It's a shame that the hospitality industry can't club together to sort of say, look, we want a minister. We want, the tourism hospitality minister or something.
If the hospitality industry could club itself together, we would not have half the problems we have for this industry.
Yeah.
Okay? Every single seminar, every conference, every meeting, every discussion you go to, the same topic is discussed. Staff, chef shortage, staff, this shortage, staff problem, this problem. But the industry itself is so involved in solving its own problems. Independent hotels will solve their own problems. Independent restaurants solve their own problems. Everybody solves their own problem, and nobody sits down and says, what can we collectively do to solve this problem once and for all? And this is where some people like us can make a change. We can make a difference. If you read the emails that the students have written to me, it's heartwarming. Just 5 lines to tell me how great the competition was, how they enjoyed it, and how important it is for them to get a little more exposure into the best of Asian cuisine.
That's good.
So it's made a world of difference. That's just a comment like that. That's all you want, actually.
So moving forward slightly, you have been heavily involved with the NHS Better Food Programme.
Oh yes, when it was.
When it was, of course, yeah. And did you see any changes there, or obviously you all tried, but hospital food seems to be the same as it's always been.
You're hitting me below the belt now, but I'll tell you. No. Okay. The Better Hospital Food Program started on the right track. The intentions were right, simply because there was a need to change the menu structure. There was a need to get in better food into the patients. The research at the time showed very clearly that simply because the food wasn't right, patients took longer to leave hospital. And they wanted the beds very urgently because there's so many operations to be done and so much treatment. They want the beds, but they cannot release the bed if the patient is not convalescing well enough. So this program was devised so that we could give the patients a better choice of food, better menu, food that warms the soul, and everything else like that. So we put a lot of effort into it. The whole team put a lot of effort into it. I knew my job was the most difficult because I had roughly 80 recipes to rework. But eventually it came to the funding and the government's money allocation for food based on the size of the hotel, the kind of patients it had, and what it needed. And ultimately, if it comes back to money again, nothing's going to change. Things didn't change. Not much. My menus were introduced. I saw some of them, when you go to a hotel, hospital caterer, conference or whatever. But it's the same old product, the same old recipe, the same old ingredients that have not evolved.
So the problem is, it's just the budget per patient is just too low, isn't it? I think
extremely low.
Yeah,
extremely low. It's nearly £2 something for morning tea, breakfast, afternoon tea, lunch, afternoon tea, and dinner.
Wow, that's it. £2 roughly.
£2 and something now, I think.
Not even per meal. We're talking.
No, not even per meal. It's an overall budget.
Wow, that's shocking. That's really shocking.
That's what it is. Allocation. It's not a rich country anymore. I think Britain is not as wealthy as it used to be.
But I think what people don't realise, and we're going to jump on to sort of health anyway, is that actually if people were fed better, it would cost less in the long run anyway.
Yes, but that was the whole idea. The whole idea of the project was if we fed people better, they would heal better, they would get treated better, and they would leave hospital sooner.
Yeah.
We made a suggestion as well. I put it very strongly to the gentleman in charge called Mr. Paul Cryer. He was absolutely switched on man. And I said, Paul, the poorest in this country may be able to afford you to pay 50 pence extra on top for food. The better off can pay £1, £2 a day. I said, if you can provide all that food for £2, but if 50 pence is added on top, it makes one meal special.
Yeah.
It makes £1 on top will make 2 meals special. And I said, all you got to ask the patient. If I'm totally unable to pay, if I'm skint, if I'm a poor man, I'm off the street, yes, by all means. Thank you very much. We will look after you. But if I am an able-bodied person who has a means to pay £1 for a meal, why not ask? Why not try the British public? See how good they say, no, it'll be a furor. I said, try.
Oh.
Unless you ask the people, how will the people know that they can contribute and do better for themselves and for everybody?
Well, they already do. The difference is that these people already do that because they'll go to the shop downstairs, or their family will go to the shop downstairs, and they'll pay £3-4 for a sandwich or something else.
Or a burger,
yeah.
And rubbish. You bring burger back into the hospital.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The whole problem is that you've got an NHS system that is actually probably making people worse off with the food, especially if you've got diabetics eating cornflakes and so on.
So it is true.
Yeah.
It is true, but this is what it is. Unfortunately, that's the way the system works, and
So
that's the way
you can't see that ever changing, really.
I can't see it changing because of the simple fact that thinking is too deeply rooted in Maya, really. And there is always more business to be had discussing topics that are different to what the nation needs, really.
Yeah.
And the nation needs good, healthy food. If you go to a hospital, there are people there in A&E coming for various treatments. Why did you get yourself into that position in the first place? Okay, poverty drove you to it, but that's one thing. On top of that, when you get into the hospital, the food that you're served isn't great enough to compensate what the body needs. And that's the other problem.
You're not getting nourishment, are you? There's no nourishment.
You're not getting proper nourishment. You might be getting nourishment, but not proper nourishment.
No. It keeps you full, let's say, for a little bit, but it's not nourishing.
That's true.
When I was there, and you're seeing, you're seeing people that are very unwell, and they're eating sticky toffee pudding with custard, and you're thinking that's fine if you're healthy. But really, you need food for the soul. Food that, like you said, it's going to make you feel warm inside, nice, comfort. And vegetables and meat but that wasn't happening. No, that wasn't happening. But so now we're sort of talking about food and food health. I watched a video with you the other day, and you were talking about vegetable oils.
Yeah.
And I can tell that you feel fairly passionate about that. But also your knowledge was fairly on point, I thought. So give us a little bit about let's talk about vegetable oil versus sort of, let's say, something like ghee or just solid fats or just cold pressed fats or oils, even cold pressed oils. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness, man. You've thrown a question where I've got many thoughts on that and multiple confusions in my mind too. But getting deeper into the subject of vegetable oils, so everybody in the industry uses a refined vegetable oil. And the refined vegetable oil is used in frying and cooking and etc. because it's cheap. But little do we know what actually goes into the oil sometimes. So by putting the title vegetable oil, what does it mean? What's in there? What are the vegetables in there? That we don't come to know. And it will give you one word on the top in the list of ingredients. It will give you soy. It might give you rice bran, it might give you sunflower, rapeseed, whatever. But by and large, these oils are heavily mixed. Now, the refining process of that, which people fail to understand. So when you have oil that the seed comes into the plant, its extract is pressed, you get an oil. The first oil that comes out is your extra virgin cold pressed oil.
Yep.
But when you look at the cake that's formed in the presser, all you get after that is a lot of oil still residue into that paste. It's still a residue in that paste. And that oil then needs to be re-extracted. So it goes through a heating process, heat treatment. With the heat treatment, they might add some solvents into it. And the solvents are actually pretty much drinking pain thinner. It's like someone saying, okay, have some of this, it's great for you. You drink the thinner instead of you drinking something else because it is a thinner. There are industrial thinners of different styles. They could be food safe.
Yeah.
And those are added to the grains to make them give off more oil. Thereafter, it goes through a third process, which is the heat process along with the thinners process. And that is your ultra-refined oil. And that cannot be very good for you because, A, the problem with ultra-refined oils is the breakdown is very rapid, extremely rapid. And the oil turns its tail from being good, maybe whatever, to carcinogenic. But you have to realize that there is some element or traces of thinners and solvents lying in that oil still. And that is detrimental to the human body. I can't drink pain thinner and think I'm going to be great, I'm going to get thin or something. That's bad. On the other side of other fats, so ghee, for example, is derived from animal fat. It's a butter. Butter is churned. It is then heated. The process of heat separates the liquid from the solid, from the fat. And that fat is called ghee. It's clarified butter, one way or another. All Indian food is not cooked in clarified butter. It's not. It's when there's a particular dish which needs ghee, it's put ghee. When ghee is used, because if you see, notice here, there are things that not here, but otherwise to attach stuff to. So, you can use it again in another format. But ghee is not consistent throughout India. So mostly in the north or mostly in the farming communities, so where the farmer had a plow, which was animal-drawn plow, he generally ended up with a cow and a bull or a buffalo and a bull buffalo. The bull buffalo did all the heavy work. The female buffalo also did work, but then she also gave birth, and the cow gave birth. So they had milk in the house. The calf only had milk for a certain period of time, but there was fresh milk being churned in the house. And when fresh milk is churned in the house, buffalo milk can go to a very high percentage of fat, much more than cow as compared to cow's milk. So, milk is not pasteurized in the house. So it has to be heated twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times a day. And by that heating and boiling process, each time you get the milk, you get a clotted cream on the top. The clotted cream was collected. If you ate it, the family ate some. There was always excess. That excess got churned into butter. Butter would not last for more than 2 or 3 days because it's fresh butter. It's not pasteurized. When that butter started to go slightly off, the woman of the house, the lady of the house, would instantly heat it up, boil it, clarify the butter, and use it as ghee. So if you had ghee in your house, why would you go and buy another fat? You had ready-made ghee in the house. And that was one aspect. The aspect of ghee eating is pretty old. And this myth about eating highly fatty foods being bad for you is disputed by people in the wrestling world of India, the wrestling community of India, where many of the wrestlers every morning, besides applying ghee on their bodies, they would drink pure ghee.
Wow.
And I read the story of one of these masters of wrestling who still wrestles at the age of 93 or 94, but he drinks half a kilo of ghee every morning. That's half a kilo of pure ghee every morning. He drinks it. He's 94.
Wow.
The man's as agile as a cat at 94. His body is supple, it's smooth, it's beautiful. But, I'm just saying, so it disputes certain theories. What goes wrong is the human being eats products that are some small, minute carcinogenic side effects, like refined oil. It's got solvents in it. It has to have an effect. Vegetable homogenized fats are bad. They are homogenized.
Yeah.
So homogenization is a process of spinning vegetable fats at a very high velocity and incorporating water into it. And it forms a block. So all the margarine blocks, we know that margarine is virtually almost on the verge of being a plastic. Animals won't touch it, but human beings can because we are stupid. But then you have all these other things coming out that are good for you, good for you, good. And man gets confused, doesn't understand these things. But to me, going back to the old-fashioned Indian way of going to the local mill, the farmers just harvested a crop, let's say for argument's sake, is rapeseed. You go there, you can fill up your bottle with pure golden nectar, bring it back home, cook with it. The next time you go, it might be sunflower. The third time you go, it might be something else. It might be, whatever's growing, ragi or this or that or whatever's growing in the area. And that's the oil, sesame, etc., are the ones that people used in their homes regularly.
I think the only downside is like if we're looking at England and whether it's restaurant, takeaway, fish and chip shop, they need to think a bit more about the oils they fry in, I think, because if they use it in highly processed liquid oils, like you said, they break down fast, they're not going to be good for people, are they? So what do you sort of suggest there? Because using, even I think, and I might be wrong, you might have a different opinion here, but even using cold pressed rapeseed oil probably isn't the best thing for continuous frying, is it?
You don't fry in cold pressed rapeseed oil.
No, it's for cold uses, isn't it?
Yeah, it's for cooking uses.
Yeah.
You can fry in that, you do fry in that, but it deteriorates rapidly.
Very fast.
Because it is just filtered. It absorbs the solids, the proteins from the food that you're cooking, and in that case also, when you're doing that, they leave behind them residues into the food.
Yeah.
And that residue deteriorates the oil faster. In terms of the oils that we use, the problem with thinking, and the problem with thinking in Britain in particular, is buy the best price you get. And we all know that price does not define quality.
No, of course not.
It can be a high price, doesn't mean that it's always the best. But a low price doesn't define the fact that I'm getting a great quality at a lower price. Then you brought this topic out about rapeseed. So whilst rapeseed has a lot of positives, the negative on rapeseed and the negative on many of these oils that are mass produced is what goes into the production of the oil. What pesticide, what insecticide, what fertilizers were used, what is absorbed through the roots and into your food chain, have a continuous effect on the human body, whether we realize it or we don't realize it. And ultra-refined fats, which are amalgamated to form a product called vegetable oil legally, could be oils from various sources you don't know. You don't know the what constitutes the breakup of those fats to make 100% oil, which is higher, which is lower, what is harmful, what is not. And going back to the 60s and in America, when they were very keen on the farmers moving into the other areas of the prairies, and nobody wanted to go so far away. The government gave them land and gave them massive subsidies and gave them seeds to grow corn, for example. And corn, you and I both eat corn. We'll roast it, we'll put it, we will peel it, we'll cook it. I have never seen my hands go greasy by peeling corn.
No.
Nor have I ever had the effect of feeling my mouth oily. But if I put a handful of sunflower seeds in my mouth, I know it's sticky, it's got oil in it, whatever else that you have. How then did corn oil became the healthiest oil to consume? Massive stockpiles of corn. The world is now not buying my corn because they are growing their own corn.
Yeah.
So what do I do with that corn? Let's turn it into ethanol. Let's make oil out of it. So you have a solvent. That fermentation process leads to a spirit, which is not a spirit, it's a solvent. That solvent extracts the oil and the two are separated. But doesn't that oil have traces of those solvents inside? Because it's extracted. The corn might have 1 or 2% oil, because every seed has some oil in it.
Yeah.
But 1 or 2% oil, how do you then get millions of liters of oil to feed the masses? So that oil then goes into the big food chain, and a brand becomes the brand to buy. Little realizing that is gradually impacting on the liver, because it is building up fatty acids in the liver. The liver is now getting coated with fats and is getting restricted and constricted, and the kidneys are suffering. As a result, the organs start to suffer. And then that saturation leads to the body puffing up, organ failures happen, people get seriously ill. But it's never actually been pointed down to a fat that was wrong for human consumption in the first place. So there are lots of theories about this, lots of theories, lots of things. But again, today we go back and people say, oh, lard isn't bad for you. It wasn't. It didn't do any harm to our forefathers. Neither did lard, nor did suet, nor
Dripping.
did dripping. People use it happily, freely. And so long as every fat that you consume is done in moderation, and you're very particular about what you eat and how much you eat, you're okay. But when we eat processed fats that go through a high process of heavy, high heat, rapid reduction in heat, high heat again, rapid reduction in heat to extract more oil, there is some chemical reaction going on inside.
Oh, definitely. And I think that there has been a massive demonization of saturated fats, especially, unprocessed ones like lard. Lard, dripping, all of these fats are just very unprocessed. And I think I was reading a book a while ago, and it said that soybean oil, cottonseed oil, a lot of the American oils, they were used for lubricating tractors. And there was no money in that. So that's when they developed margarine, so one of the byproducts that people seem to love these days,
People believe what they read sometimes. Soy. So in the early 1960s, when the World Health Organization looked at the third world or the developing world countries, malnutrition was the cause of lack of development and progress. So the World Health then did a massive study in India and other countries, and it turned out that the poorer class of people lacked the financial stability to eat proteins. And it was the protein lacking in the diet that led to various levels of malnutrition and then disfigurement of the human body. So what was the easiest solution of giving a people protein to substitute their lack of ability to buy is the flour. Every nation in the world makes some kind of bread. Every Indian has to live on his chapati or roti or whatever bread is made locally. So that time they understood that if we add a certain amount of soybean flour into the wheat flour, it will give the home an extra boost of protein. So that became a standard. That led to a massive demand in soy. So we need more soy. How do we get more soy? Deforestation, genetic modification. How best to get more out of that crop? And so soy production became this big enigma.
Yeah.
On that side of the world, the masters of soy production and process, the Japanese. 2,500 years ago, the Japanese found that unfermented soya is extremely harmful for the digestive tract and causes severe complications. The word cancer wasn't known then. The word cancer is understood now. But nobody listens because soy is soy, it's high protein, so it must be good for me. But if you take soybean and you boil it and eat it, there is no fat. It's got very, very, very little fat in it. But how do I now extract the fat? So I put solvents into it. So again, the solvents are going into that food chain. Rice bran oil. Where in the world has rice bran got so much fat in it?
I think you need a lot of bran to get that.
You need a lot of bran and you need a lot of brawn. So the brawn is the solvents that are thinners added to rice bran to produce the oil, as in many other fats today. So it is sold on the label of healthy oils, but they are not healthy oils, actually speaking. And this has led to a serious rise in crime. The mafiosi have gotten into the Amazon forest. Vast tracts of rainforest is chopped down every year to grow soy. 100,000 acres. It's not a joke. You are depleting the world's resources on that. And under the guise of I am being vegetarian or vegan, you know.
You've just touched on that, and I think I wonder if a lot of the people that are following this, the new vegans, let's say, I wonder if they see what they're actually buying into sometimes.
Well, they don't, and they have their arguments, because according to the vegan and the vegetarian, the pollution caused by animals is far greater. But let's look at Britain as a nation. Britain as a nation is geographically best created for grazing. We have less arable land, we have more grazing land.
Yeah.
As in country like Switzerland, for example, also. And it's more grazing than arable. So naturally, in Britain, there is massive amounts of grazing land. But, again, yes, animals do have droppings. Droppings might convert them into methane, whatever is harmful for the environment, as do human beings. We are the highest populators on the planet. We release more methane than all the animals in the world put together. We don't blame the human being for destroying the planet or creating a hole in the ozone layer.
No.
But we are doing more harm
Yeah.
by what we excrete every morning or every evening or whenever we feel like excreting. But today, when we look at organic crops, and this is a subject matter that is of concern to someone like me. So I have an organic farm. A mile up the road is a regular farm. I am certified organic because I tended to my soil. I left it vacant for 7-8 years. I got the Soil Association to come and verify there's no fertilizer, nothing exiting the soil. 1 mile up the road, the farmer has not got accreditation. On a nice, bright, windy day, he's got his tractor out with his sprays out. Bzzz,
Goes
and he
everywhere.
sprays. What's happening to my organic growth on plant? So can I say I'm now 100% organic?
Probably not.
So that probably not. So there are all these various questions. What human beings need to understand is we need to lead a life that is ecologically balanced. And we have to be environmentally conscious, but also not go into this state of being a fashion statement. The moment you drive fashion, veganism, fashion, that fashion is driving people from deforesting large pieces of land, soy milk, cervical cancer growth. Yes, excessive amount of cervical cancer growth. Who is it associated with? No one wants to talk about it. Okay? But I've got so much soy production and so much extraction of soy. The byproduct is the milk. What do? Make it fashionable and tell the world that it's great for the human body. You must drink soy milk. Almond milk. Suddenly now almonds have become endangered and almonds are now becoming bad because they are applying excessive amounts of fertilizers and pesticides to make more almonds grow.
Keep up with it.
Coconut, same problem. So everywhere the human being jumps from one to the other, to the other, to the other, and is causing problem. Now oats is the new milk. So suddenly, do you want Scotland, England, Wales to produce 10 times the amount of oats? What's going to happen when you produce more oats? To meet the demand, the farmer is forced to denude his soil, use means that de-weeding, pesticides, fertilizers, to produce more for human beings. That is in your food chain already. Your organic packet of oats might have less carcinogenic material inside, but your regular packet of oats could have a bit more. You don't know. But because we are pushing this demand, we have all these issues in the world. Unfortunately so.
No. Right. And you just touched on coconut oil a little bit, but what do you think about...
I'm very scared, honestly. I grew up in a place where coconut oil was natural. The families I lived with in Goa, for example, they plucked their own coconuts, the coconut dried, they sent it to the local mill, the bulls would grind the stone. You got your pure, beautiful coconut oil in the house. You use it in as much as you think you should be using. The professor in Britain behind the reduction of salt and sugar, which actually are the key. Okay? Professor Macpherson, if I've got his name right. I had a discussion with him on this very table we are sitting here. And asked him, Professor, what's your view on coconut oil? And he told me, Cyrus, tell me one thing. That if a pure fat that's extracted from a vegetable is left in front of me for 10 minutes and it solidifies, please explain to me what it's doing to my system inside. It's solidifying. How good is it for my body to be absorbing that? I said, you have a point. So what he then told me is that Sri Lanka, I give you an example, he said, a real living example. Sri Lanka per capita is the world's highest consumer of coconut oil. Sri Lanka per capita is the world's highest sufferer of cardiac problems. They are skinny, they are thin, they look wiry, but 90% of the adult male population has some form of cardiac problem. Now you tell me whether coconut oil is good for you or bad for you. So I don't have a ready answer, but I'm just giving you an explanation.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, but in India we use coconut oil for massage, we apply it in our oil, hairs. Yes, the South Indians use much of it in the cooking, but then every house has 50 trees.
Yes.
You can only drink, they don't drink the coconut oil, they are not meant for water. They are pure kernel coconuts.
Yeah.
So the coconuts used for making the curry, but there are some excessive coconuts, and that can mix into oil at home. And they use that oil for cooking, just as ghee.
Yeah.
Just as a lady in a rural area had clotted cream, so he had fresh fat in the house. Or if you had your own animals and you cooked a nice, side of pork or beef or lamb, and you had dripping. And you collected that dripping.
So do you think they're pushing that a little bit too much with the cultivation, growing more?
I think so.
Yeah.
Personally, I think so. I am wary, but I know friends who are buying organic coconut oil and drinking it because it's supposed to be good for the system. And then when you sit with a man who's so practical in his thinking, and he just broke it down for me, bang over there. And I know for a fact that in Goa we have people who suffer from acute obesity. They eat a lot of coconut oil and a lot of curries also. And a lot of cardiac problems. And I try to analyze about the people I worked with and the people I lived with and the people I met on the roads. And there is some truth in that, has to be. But it could be other issues of modern life, the stresses, the pollution, the fumes we breathe, etc. So all of those put together, must have an effect. But we shouldn't jump. Man should sit back and evaluate. 20 years ago, eggs were bad for you. You die of salmonella. Now we say, you can eat a raw egg in Britain because it's been irradiated. Okay, 1. 2. You shouldn't eat more eggs because the cholesterol will kill you. It has been proved that the egg cholesterol isn't the most harmful cholesterol in the world. And you can eat up to 3 to 4 eggs a day. That makes people from my community very happy. We are egg lovers, So, what is right today may be wrong tomorrow. What is wrong today could be right tomorrow. Depends who has a vested interest in it sometimes. And what happens and how much information is fed into the human mind to allow those feedings to influence you. But, for my favorite radio program, Radio 4, for example, a lot of discussions happen, a lot of debates take place, a lot of truths come out. And all that does, it doesn't tell you don't do this and don't. All it tells you is, here's something, think about it.
Here's some information,
Think about it. Think what is right, what is wrong.
What's your thoughts on palm oil then?
Very touchy subject.
Yeah.
We've all been party to palm oil in some shape or form, from shampoos and soaps to toothpaste and various things. We've all consumed it. The negativity on palm oil is the impact it's having on the environment in which it is farmed. And the greed that has driven massive plantations to be created, same as soy has done in many parts of the world. Whether or not palm oil is 100% good for you or not, there are several theories. There are theories that say that palm oil is the best because of its high levels of saturation, its antioxidant qualities, its omega-3 properties, which are as good as olive oil and as good as pure rapeseed oil. And omega-6 is much lower here and much higher in rapeseed and much higher in olive oil. All of this. Some come from vested interest. Some come from the way a laboratory test is conducted. But then again, when I listen to Professor McPherson, and I think back, palm oil will congeal and coagulate at room temperature,
Yeah.
unprocessed. It will. It solidifies because it's pure of fat. It's less an oil, it's a fat. Coconut oil is actually a fat.
Yeah.
It's less an oil, it's more of fat. You need to heat it to dilute it, to thin it down. So, are fats bad for us? Now we say that lard may not be as bad and dripping may not be as bad and, eggs may not be as bad. Palm oil is the same. It came out of a tree, but it solidifies. So is it as bad as lard or as good as lard? So I think human beings need to understand. But today, when we cook our food, for example, in Cafe Spice, you will not see oil floating on the top of my food because I'm very averse to that from day one. And there are techniques that human beings can implement in cooking. And I think that is what we need to teach people. That by using minimum amount of fat and oil, you can still cook amazing, great tasting food. Our forefathers never had that facility perhaps, but they had one thing that modern cooking techniques are forgetting. They had time on their hands, and our grandmothers and mothers cooked slow, cooked deliberately, cooked slow. Slow cooking does not demand you to have excessive amounts of fats in the food you prepare because it's so slow that things won't burn.
You use moisture as well,
It
the
has
moisture from the
moisture.
food, yeah.
So I think the Italians had the drive about slow food movement. It picked up in Britain, it's getting picked up again in Britain. But all of Indian cooking is based on that. It's based on slow food. And because the cooking took place on husk, on twigs, on cow dung cakes, or on wood or charcoal or whatever. And they were slow cooking methods. So if we go back slightly, give ourselves a little bit more time, the new cookers that have now come out, it is doing exactly what your and my grandmother might have done.
Yeah.
Okay, you push the button, now you got technology. You put it there and you go to work. You come back in the evening, your dish is ready perhaps. And it's cooking at what? 40, 50, 60, 70 degrees. By the time you come in the evening, the switched on, it's getting a higher temperature, ready for food. And there is availability of all that, and that will prevent you from using more fat. So be a little bit more aware of what's around you and use that to the best of your ability.
So do you think, now that we're talking about health, we're coming to the end of that, but do you think that restaurants and food takeaways have a responsibility to their customers?
We all have a responsibility. We have a greater responsibility than we give ourselves credit for, actually speaking. We are one of the most polluting industries in the world. We waste water, we waste power, we waste energy, we have gas, we have effluents, we have garbage, we have everything that an environment does not want. We feed people, they create more garbage. We create garbage. So, actually speaking, the hospitality industry has one of the greatest battles on its hands of playing well into all the aspects of the environmental or the environment that they abuse from time to time or on a daily basis. So, what we do to our people, we have a sole responsibility. And how our people feel when they leave our restaurants and how happy they feel when they get out is what we are about anyway. But then if we look after their health as well and their well-being, and we emphasize upon what we do, how we do, where we procure, where we buy from, why we buy from, where we buy from, or whatever, it makes the people you feed feel better. I think, and we have a duty of care.
Yeah.
And that's the most important. That's part of hospitality.
Yeah.
So that's our hospitality is a global, all-rounded subject. It's not a square box. It's a round box.
So my next question is, when I only prepared it today for you, unfortunately, as you know, is what is hospitality?
So let's go back into the definition which forms the last word in our restaurant's name, Namaste. So Namaste is a Sanskrit word that goes back thousands of years in Vedic times. And Namaste breaks down hospitality in its most basic form. So, in its simplest form, what Namaste tells you, when I join my hands, I don't join my hands, I cup my hands, and it's like an arrow pointing forward. So, I am greeting you and telling you that from the divinity within my soul, I respect the divinity within you and welcome you into my abode. Second definition of that is, when I welcome you into my house, I welcome the goddess Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. When you're coming into my premise, if I do not respect you as God, I am not performing my duty well enough. So to me, you are, in the Sanskrit word, Annadatta. Annadatta is the word referred to God. Means he is the grain provider. Anna is grain, Datta is the provider. You are my grain provider. If you don't come into my restaurant, I don't feed myself and my staff. I am nobody without you. So that's the first definition of understanding hospitality, that your guest is here not because you are here. You are there because your guest is coming there. That's the first thing. If every person working in the hospitality industry understood that first, that my job is predominantly reliant upon that man or that woman who walks into my business, then life will make it very easy. So that to us is a simple definition of hospitality. And hospitality is an all-rounded affair.
Yep.
So we touched upon health, we touched upon benefit, we touched upon this, we touched upon that. And we are trying our best to create an environment where we are conscious and we are conscientious. So hospitality can be greeting your customer in a happy way, hi, hello, conversation, talk. But the whole idea is, why are we communicating? We are communicating to bring people from a certain mindset that they have been exposed to into a mindset that is more congenial, that is more relaxing, and that makes the person feel comfortable and homely. So hospital is all about being at home. So you have to create an atmosphere of homeliness. And that evolves, or that explains it all in a very simple form.
So we touched on this earlier while I was preparing, and how does that sit with modern reviewing techniques like TripAdvisor? How do you square the two when you're trying to be hospitable, and you may make mistakes because everyone does, but how do you deal with customers who maybe don't want that almost are using that platform as a way to beat you?
Unfortunately, the world has today become very sensitive. It's far too oversensitive. An explosion of knowledge, an explosion of information, an explosion of negative information comes to us. If we put on any news channel anywhere in the world, 99.9% of the news is bad news. Is bad news. It's always telling you about a death, a murder, an attack, a company collapse, this or that, famine, something. So in the world of today, we are so exposed to negativity constantly. Positivity is at a premium. People are brainwashed into negativity. So people are at once aware that something is wrong, you're working against me. So somebody outside, you go on a tube and everybody's suspicious of the next person. Nobody strikes a conversation. Nobody will give you a smile. If you smiled at somebody, found something amusing, nobody's going to smile back at you. That's because we have become a civilization that distrusts everybody. Okay, first point. When it comes to hospitality, this industry is about people. It is the most fragile industry in the world. Most fragile. The fragility in our industry is dealing with human beings on a 24/7 basis. A human being is fragile. Your manpower is fragile. Your customer is fragile. You upset him, he's gone. What's happened that fragility has been abused now. And we are human beings. We all err. We all make mistakes. We all have, we are not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Even God wasn't perfect. He created man. Okay. So the thing is, that today it gives somebody so much ammunition to sit behind a screen in the precincts of their homes and to slander. And it has become a means of slandering for no purpose. Nobody wants to be slandered, but at the same time, people want to be positively criticized or discussed. If I have made a mistake, you tell me, listen, boss, don't do this, please. I don't like it. If I'm offending you, you come up and tell me, say, listen, I didn't like that comment you made. Say, okay, sir, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I won't do it again. So I have a problem. I didn't like your food perhaps, but I will make it sound like you really destroyed my happiness. And it is a means of knifing somebody. It's a means of hitting somebody. So we vociferously will not speak negatively, but on a pen and paper or a keypad, that vociferous outburst that we could have had transforms itself into abuse and into insults and into writing things that you may not on a normal state of mind want to write, but you really want to make an impact.
Yeah.
And to create that impact, you just hurl everything possible at people. And I think it's wrong. It's wrong. It is wrong because it makes somebody else who could have had a perfectly good experience think twice. And that is what damages people. And it gives this person maybe a 5-minute burst of venting his frustration or her frustration. It's out of my chest now. I so feel good about this. But you have passed your problem on to somebody else. And you haven't affected one person, you affected an entire organization. And the entire organization is dejected, they are depressed, they feel hurt, they don't understand what happened. When somebody came and asked you, is everything all right? You say, yeah, it's all fine, no problem. And then you go back and you write something else.
Well, you would argue if they wanted a positive outcome, and let's just assume it was a negative experience, you'd think if they came back and said to you or your manager, whoever served them, I've not had a great experience, well, you would go beyond yourself to make the next experience better.
Yes.
So
we first would make amends.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And then make the next experience better. And then try and understand what actually drove that.
What went wrong.
What went wrong.
Yeah.
Not all reviews are bad. There's some people who are really, really good. They're appreciative. They enjoy the experience. They will tell you before leaving and they'll go back and write an amazing review about you. But it's people who harbor, don't come out with it. And I think that is a bad thing because gentle discussion leads to more relevant resolution of issues. And that's what it should be all about. But it's the world we live in. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have TripAdvisor, we have Instagram, we have everything. Everybody today who dines in a restaurant considers himself or herself a food critic. Whether you have the experience or don't have the experience.
Yeah.
But it's personal. Food is very, very, very personal.
Yeah.
What I think is great could be bad for you.
Yeah.
It's like people eating certain foods are bad for you. We were in Vietnam recently. We were unknowingly unknowingly served dog meat. Okay. Now to me, that creature has given me who I had, love, affection. Means somebody you have nurtured and worked with. So for a British mindset, like someone like me, we love our animals. Suddenly, I am being fed an animal that I have been used to looking at in a different wavelength. And it's absolutely sickening. So I say, yuck, I ate that. And it upset me for days together. But then I analyzed, I said, no, think about it. It's their way of eating food. It's their diet. It's their food. They eat that. So to them, it's a matter of fact. To you, it's different. So also in terms of the way food is put together, to me, I didn't like that. But to somebody else, wow, isn't that amazing? And you're sitting here saying, what the hell is amazing about that? It's bloody rubbish.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you have to sit back and think, no, it's rubbish for me because my palate is made differently.
Yeah.
My taste buds vary. They analyze fats and proteins, etc. differently. For instance, I don't enjoy sour things. I do not. I get lockjaw. I don't enjoy them. And when something sour comes in my plate, it spoils the rest of my meal. I just don't like it. But I can tolerate bitter, but I can't tolerate sour.
Okay.
And there are others who want more salt in their food, and others who want less salt in their food. Others who want more chili, people want less chili. It's how people are used to, accustomed to eating. But does not mean that everything is bad. The restaurant or the hotel tries its best to do what they think is right in a product. And if the human being can understand and say, I didn't like it today, can you do something different for me? Sure, no problem. I'll take it back, I'll change it. What would you like instead? It takes half a minute to solve the problem.
Yeah. They show it, and they would have enjoyed the meal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they would have gone happy. And they would have thought, wow, this place really looked after me.
Do you think, and I think we know the answer to this, but do you think that companies like TripAdvisor do enough to stop malicious reviews?
I don't think so.
No.
But I also don't think they have so much control on it. Because it's gone, it's out, it's already in a public domain. They started a portal in a well-meaning way. That it was twisted around has not been the basis upon which it was established. It's human nature to do things differently.
Yeah.
Facebook, similar problem. Twitter, similar problem. You can damage somebody.
I suppose one of the good things about Facebook, is that it's a real person, it's a real name. So you can match that to a reservation, for argument's sake. Whereas with TripAdvisor,
They're
Twitter,
fictitious names, mostly.
Yeah, it's their nickname or whatever it is, or actually a completely made-up name.
Made-up name.
Yeah, and we mentioned earlier how you actually get points on scoring, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I was on Twitter the other week, and someone said, "How long will it take for the opposite of TripAdvisor, where restaurants can review customers?" And that I was just thinking, well, that would be a great idea, wouldn't it? But
that will lead to slandering. I don't think our industry is one that goes into debate on those subjects.
I think the trust just needs to come back.
The trust has to come
just
back.
needs to come back, and then you go out for a meal and you expect to pay and you expect to enjoy it. And if that expectation wasn't met, you talk about it, and that's just what needs to happen, doesn't it?
Like I said before, the whole industry is hospitality. You are the most important person to me. Why would I willingly and willfully upset you?
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, staff sometimes have a bad day, and it comes out on.
But that wasn't on purpose.
Yeah. Yes, it's not on purpose, but sometimes the reactions are not right. Please call somebody who's senior and say, listen, can you have me served by someone else? I don't think that man's in the right state of mind. And that person will be dealt with afterwards. But in a establishment where you're making rooms for people to live in, what is the main basis of some of the big groups selling their rooms today? It's the bed and the shower. And the people insist, and they make a focal point of the kind of bed that they are investing in.
Yeah.
Because in a hotel room, you're going there to have a great night's rest. You might be up for an early meeting or whatever, and a great shower, and you get out peacefully in a great frame of mind and a good breakfast.
Yeah.
So that's what it is geared up to give you. It is not geared up to give you a bed of thorns. It's not geared up to make you feel uncomfortable, give you pillows that your neck hurts, your back hurts, your everything hurts, and a shower that drips water on your head. But things go wrong.
Yeah.
Things go wrong. So every single dot you can join in hospitality is about the customer's experience. It's all to do with the customer. The customer is at the very epicenter of our industry. Why would we willingly hurt somebody? Things go wrong. Be understanding, work with it. If they cannot resolve your problem, if somebody is obnoxious when you bring a topic up, and somebody is becoming overly defensive, by all means you have a right then to take the matter to a different level.
Of course.
But by and large, in our industry, I don't think it will happen.
No, I don't think so. So one last question to finish this off, because I know that you've got a very busy day ahead of you. What have you most loved about, or what do you still love about the hospitality industry?
No 2 days are the same. That for me is the best part of this industry. You walk in every morning, there's a new challenge waiting for you. I love it. There's a new problem waiting for you. I love it. There is something to aspire towards, there's something to gain, there is something I can create all the time. My mind is racing 24 hours a day on different creating things. What I can bring, what I can bring in, what I can give to my customers. So in this industry, if you are a creative person, if you are a person who likes that little bit of pressure, a little bit of aggression, and a bit of the challenge, then there's no industry like this industry in the world. It's not like a mechanical factory where that machine runs, it produces X amount of nuts, bolts, cars, tubes, whatever it is. This industry can never be like that. Like I said before, this is the most fragile industry in the world. So in my words, hospitality is the most fragile industry in the world. So if you're handling a very delicate piece of glass, you are thinking how best I can make it last me longer. So this industry is fragile. And for handling something fragile, you have to be creative. So you're always doing something. And that's the best part of it.
So the chaos brings you joy?
Yes.
Yeah.
To a degree, it brings you joy. But it's how I can overcome that chaos and make it
order.
Order is fantastic. Something's not arrived, something's not come, this is not good, that is not good. Yes, it causes you grief, but you can always overcome it. And when you overcome it, and then when you have happy people leaving, what rewards does hospitality give you? It's just the people that you make happy and a smile on their face and say, thank you so much, I've had a great experience. That's all you get. You don't make millions. Hospitality doesn't allow you to become a wealthy man. It allows you to have wealth in your relationships, allows you to have wealth in the people that you get to know and to meet. And I think that has always been my wealth. I don't think I'll ever be a millionaire or a rich man, but I have a great life. And I'm thankful to this industry. It makes me meet people in all parts of the world that I could never dream of meeting in any other sphere of work.
Well, on that note, I think we should finish it there.
Yeah, thank you
You
very
finished
much.
on a very positive note.
It's a positive. It's a positive.
And I just want to thank you for your time once again.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the topics. They were great, well informed, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
Look forward to that.
Thank you very much, Cyrus.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that episode with Cyrus. I'm sure you'll all agree he's a proper gentleman. I would like to thank Cyrus for his time. He was really busy that day, and I really appreciate it. It won't be long before we release the next episode, so we hope you enjoy that one as well. It's already done, and we are planning an update episode where it'll be just me, and if you've got any questions, just fire them over and we'll get them added in and answered. Our listener base has really grown, so thank you again so much. Please subscribe because you'll get it delivered to you automatically, and also be sure to tell your friends. Thank you.